Hi everyone, thank you for joining us on today's webinar. We're going to be talking today about how to design a faster support process as a best practice for delivering better customer service. My name is Becca Kraft. I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at Desk.com as part of Salesforce. And before we get too far, I just need to show you one quick thing, which is our forward-looking statement. As a reminder, Salesforce is a publicly traded company, so please make any purchasing decisions based on currently available products and publicly available information. With that, I think we're just going to dive right in because we have a lot to go over in terms of how to design a better support process. And there wasn't anyone better to invite than Amanda Chu, who's part of our Customer WOW team here at Desk. So Amanda, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Becca. I am a solutions consultant here, and I work on our services team, helping customers implement the Desk solution for their company all the time. So I work with customers to understand how their business works and how their support team manages cases day to day, and I help translate those needs into how we can configure their Desk setup.
That's why Amanda is absolutely critical in terms of making sure that our customers are using Desk in the way that lets them get the most out of the product. And I'm Becca Kraft. As I mentioned, I'm the Director of Product Marketing here, so I think a lot about our product and how do we help our customers get the most out of it. As a reminder, as always, these webinars are highly interactive, so we'll be keeping a very close eye on the chat bar. So if you have any questions at all during the course of the webinar, please type them out. We'll do everything we can to get to as many of them as we can, so don't be shy. And as a reminder, again, you will be sure to get a recording of this webinar after it is over. So if for whatever reason you need to depart for another meeting or something else comes up that needs your attention, don't worry, you will still have access to this great content. And with that, let's dive right in. I thought a really great place to start, Amanda, with our conversation are some of the common challenges that you see when customers are coming out of shared email or spreadsheets when they've put together a customer service process with spit and duct tape. And you and I have talked a lot about where those problems show up, where it's really difficult to actually assign cases to the right person. There's a lot of makeshift ways to do that with labels or color codes or other pieces that are part of these other tools. But at the end of the day, even if you can figure out how to assign those cases, it's really hard to be consistent, right? A lot of companies that I know you work with and companies that I definitely talk to have a shared document that has an FAQ that lets them try to be consistent, but it's not very productive. It's not very quick. So there's some makeshift, and I call them the spit and duct tape filter rules that kind of help teams be productive. But at the end of the day, this is a very, very reactive way to design a process, and there aren't a lot of tools available within shared email or spreadsheets that let you build a process. So for some of our customers that are coming out of shared email and spreadsheets and into Desk.com, it's important to get an introduction to how do you build that process. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, we see a lot of people that look like this when they come to Desk. They're drowning in the inquiries that they have. They have no way to track, and they're just looking for help. So I thought that a great way to jump into our conversation was to go over three really key components that I know you talk about all the time. The first is that case assignment piece, making sure that the right cases are going to the right agents. The case management piece, so once you have those things assigned, making sure that all of the agents have everything that they need to be able to resolve them, mm-hmm. and then automating as much as possible so that you can get those boosts in productivity that help your team.
Absolutely.
So with that, why don't we kick off with the case assignment piece?
Great, thanks, Becca. So for case assignment is the very first step that your team needs to understand how to manage through Desk. And the very first way of managing case assignment is to have just one filter of unassigned cases, and having one designated manager triaging all those unassigned cases is a great way of going through those unassigned case filters.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's still a pretty manual way to do that, right? So you've got that one person that is taking a look at all of those pieces of the case, and then Desk makes it very easy to assign those cases out manually, but what about that next level so you can automate more?
Right. So moving on, if we have just an unassigned case filter, like Becca was saying, we can take that one step further and break those unassigned cases out to multiple filters. And by doing so, we're creating separate queues for groups of agents to basically attack. And the goal of having these different queues is to get those inboxes down to 0. We can create those custom queues or filters by using things like custom fields, different channels or labels. There's quite a few different tools for creating conditions within filters. And that's how we can create like a very focused, specific queue for a specific group of agents in your team.
And one of the things that's really cool about that is, let's say that you have someone on your team that is really, really good at responding to cases on Twitter, for example. One of the things that you can do really easily is set up that queue to identify these are Twitter cases that are coming in and assigning them automatically to that agent.
Right.
It makes it really easy for your agents to stay focused, so that they are responding to the cases that you really want them to with the right level of priority.
Right, absolutely. And a great way of, thinking through how you want to create your queues is to think about how your team might be segmented. So like Becca was saying, you can segment your queues by social media, so it can be Twitter and Facebook team. You can segment it by brand, so if you have multiple brands that you work with, you can have a different filter for each brand. Or you can separate them by specific custom field categories.
Cool. So what's like this is certainly further along the line of getting to automatic, but one of the things that you'll run into as a challenge with this is that you'll have some agents that are completely overwhelmed with cases and some agents that aren't doing as much. Is there sort of a next level that will bring additional automation to that?
Yeah, so taking this one step further, we have a feature called case routing. And case routing is a feature that allows you to automate a round-robin load balancing kind of workflow. Basically, it's almost the same thing as having case queues. You still have all the same filters set up that are segmented by team or brand or social media or channel or what have you. But if you turn on case routing by filter, you allow your agents to automatically deassign cases depending on the queue that they're filtering themselves through.
That makes sense, and that's really helpful because it takes some logic and applies it to that assignment rather than going back to sort of the cherry picking that can happen when you're in a shared email box where agents can just pick the cases they want to pick that look easy. And with round robin load balancing, you ensure that your team is working at the highest level of efficiency.
Right.
Cool. So when we're thinking about creating those automations, one of the things that I know is near and dear to your heart is inbound interaction rules. But it's not very helpful to build an inbound interaction rule without a plan, right? So what's the plan that you need to create that sort of sorting mechanism?
Right, so there are a few things that you need to think about when you're creating your inbound interaction rules. The most broad way of thinking or looking at it is what channels or what ways do your cases come into your support center, and what variables within those channels should determine how they get handled or assigned. So one thing to think about is your team structure. Are there different tiers? Do you have a level 1 support team? Do you have a support team for a specific brand, or do you have a support team for a specific social media group? It's really important to think about that and set up your users and groups according to your team structure so that we can create an inbound interaction rule that will be able to assign cases to the correct team. We also want to have the right labels and custom fields in place. So this is more important for cases that may be submitted through your email contact form, via your customer-facing support center. If you have a contact form that has required custom fields that you want your customer to fill out before they submit a case, the value of the custom field that your customer submits will possibly allow you to create conditions within your inbound interaction rules that will also assign your cases to the correct group or team or filter or what have you. Filters are also really important. Filters are what we've been talking about. Filters are the initial kind of bucket that your team will look through in order to, route themselves through cases. And automatic rules kind of follow after inbound interaction rules, in that automatic rules can sort of be triggered by additional things that occur within the case workflow.
So we got a really great question coming up. So one of the pieces of confusion that happens is that triage manager, if you assign someone to be the triage manager, is that more of an administrator kind of a role, or could it be anybody on the team?
It really depends on how your team is working. Oftentimes I see that the triage manager is someone more of a supervisor type role, or top level member of a support team. But it just needs to be somebody that has the ability to process information within a case, possibly assign values to important custom fields, someone that's able to just understand a case and know who to assign it to.
So someone with knowledge and experience, but not necessarily the Desk.com administrator.
Right.
Perfect. And then we had a couple of questions, and I know you're going to jump into the demo, so let me know if you're going to address any of these things in the demo, about the round-robin load balancing with the case routing. So the first question that we had was, does it apply to all cases from the start, right? So can you turn it on from the very beginning of using Desk so that you can balance that load really easily?
I think you might be referring to case routing, just case routing by all of your cases. I would actually recommend, and what we're talking about here is a little bit different, it's case routing by filter. So when you're routing cases by filter, you're actually only routing the cases that are being pulled into that specific filter. So that won't route you through cases that have been submitted into Desk ever since the beginning or anything like that. That'll only apply to cases that are in that specific filter. And I recommend using that option versus the latter, or the former, because it's just a little bit more focused, and it allows you to have more control over what cases are going to which teams.
Yeah, I feel like having a plan when you approach any of these things is really helpful, as opposed to just turning on the feature. And then why don't we actually jump into the demo? And guys, we're getting some great questions over chat. So just as a reminder, if you have additional questions, use that little chat button in your GoToWebinar control, or not the control panel, but the thing that's going to let you see what's happening on the webinar. Go ahead and ask your questions there, and as you can see, I will be repeating them. So let's pop into the demo. And Amanda, why don't you tell us what we're looking at right now?
Great. So you should see on your screen now the demo site that I've set up for our webinar today. And I just have a pretty simple site set up with a few different filters in place. So I'm going to walk you through the 3 levels of case assignment methods that we just talked about. The first one being just having an unassigned cases filter. So your unassigned cases filter actually comes with your Desk site out of the box, so you almost don't even need to worry about configuring it. But when you hop into your admin and look at your unassigned cases filter, normally it'll just have something like status is less than or equal to pending. And I have a few extra things here that you don't really need to worry about just for my demo site. But you want to make sure that you're looking at all the cases that are still active. So status is less than or equal to pending. And then you want to make sure that the cases assigned user is unassigned. So in our unassigned cases, you'll just see that all cases that are coming into your Desk site that haven't been assigned to anyone yet will come into this filter. And the idea is that you have your triage manager going through the filter, pulling up the cases, reviewing them, and assigning them to the correct agent. So you'll see that none of the cases here have been assigned to an agent yet. I have them assigned to groups. I might have some custom fields filled out already from some inbound interaction rules that I have put in place, but the agent is unassigned. So that's the first level of case assignment. Moving into the second level, I want to talk about these 2 different filters that I have set up. So I have a bagel queue and I have a cupcake queue. And the way that my demo site is setup, I have it segmented into customers that are requesting bagels and customers that are requesting cupcakes. So for my bagel queue, let me show you the different rules that I have put in place that send my cases either into the bagel queue or the cupcake queue. And just as a reminder, this is just an example of one way you can do this. There are a ton of different ways that you can set up your queues within Desk. And again, it completely depends on how your team structure is set up, what kind of custom fields you have set up, and how your customers are submitting cases into your support team. So for me, I have two separate email addresses that my customers can send their requests to. I have bagelmeetscupcake1@gmail.com, and that's for all bagel cases. So for this first rule, this inbound interaction rule that sends cases into my bagel queue, I have a condition that says if the email came from my bagel email address, then set the case custom field to bagels. And similarly, I have a cupcake queue inbound interaction rule that has my cupcake email address that will set the case custom field to cupcakes. So that's step one of the inbound interaction rule. Now I have to actually set up the filter that these inbound interaction rules will send the bagel and cupcake cases to. So taking a look at how my filters are set up, I'm going to look at my bagel queue filter. And first, the all condition that I have here just says make sure that the status of the case is still active. So I only want to be looking at cases that have not been moved to resolved yet. Second condition says make sure the assigned user is unassigned. So I want to make sure that I'm only looking at cases that haven't been assigned to an agent yet, so that agents that are looking for cases to assign themselves to will pick up the correct unassigned cases. And then in my any conditions, I'm saying either pick up cases that have been labeled as bagel or pick up cases that have the case custom field set as is this case related to bagels or is this case related to cupcakes. That's how I have my bagel queue set up, and my cupcake queue is the identical thing, except I have a cupcake instead of bagel for everything.
That's really easy to keep your agents really focused on the things that you want them to be focusing on.
Right. Absolutely. Looking at my filters, you'll see that all the cases that have come into my bagel filter are now appropriately bagel cases, and same thing with cupcake cases. So now if I am, a support team member that works on the cupcake queue, for example, and I log into Desk, I know that I need to go into the cupcake queue and start working either from the top or from the bottom, depending on how you have the filter sorted. Right now I have the filter sorted so that the oldest cases are at the very top. So I would work from the top down and just grab cases starting there and assign them to myself.
So when it comes to workflow, we're getting questions about sort of what I would think of as an order of operations kind of a question. So when you build these interaction rules, do you want to assign labels or custom fields first and then move them to the filter? Or do you want interaction rules that assign to a group and then you have a filter for that group? What's the best way to design that kind of a workflow?
So I think you really need to think about how your cases are coming into your desk site. So for example, if you have cases that are being emailed directly to an email address, there's not very much information to go off of. All you have is basically the email address that the case was sent to, and maybe you might be able to grab some information from the subject and the body, but you don't have any custom fields that the customer has set up. So I think with cases that are going directly into your desk site through an email address, you want to set up rules around groups and teams, and you want to think about maybe having like a triage manager that will be able to look at the cases that are, or look at the emails that were submitted and like create or allocate more custom field values, set more custom field values.
I think that makes sense, but what about if you don't have the triage manager and you're trying to do it in a more automated way?
Right.
So we have some additional questions around like if you have multiple email addresses that you've inputted into Desk, right? So you've got, bagels at mycompany.com and cupcakes at mycompany.com and orders at mycompany.com. Do you want those, would it be a best practice to separate those by filter, or does it really depend on the way you're trying to route those cases and assign them?
It depends on the way you're routing them, but most often, if you have multiple support email addresses, you will want to segment them by filter. So, your multiple email addresses will basically be the structure that you form your filters around.
Got it. And then there's, so assuming that you have a triage person, but you're trying to pull some of that workload off of the triage person, can you create some inbound interaction rules that let you do that?
Yes. So that is a little bit more of a hybrid model of what we've been talking about, but you can have a triage manager that works through unassigned cases, and you can also have, a few inbound interaction rules that will be able to automatically pull cases that are, definitely related to bagels or definitely related to cupcakes immediately into the bagel queue or the cupcake queue, and have your bagel team route themselves through the bagel queue while your triage manager goes through all the cases that weren't able to be automatically routed into those queues. So there's definitely ways of creating hybrid models of what we've been going over.
Got it. And then are we going to see any of the case routing feature that lets you do the round robin part?
Yep.
Because I've got some questions about that too, but I thought I would wait until you started showing us.
Great. Well, let's hop into that then. For case routing by filter, I'm going to go back into the admin panel and just show you where you can go to enable case routing by filter, because it is not enabled on your Desk site by default. So in order to enable case routing, we go into the Cases tab, and then on the left-hand rail, we go into the Agents tab, and we're looking at this feature called case routing, and we want to turn it on. It's disabled by default. I like to use by case filter, so that's what we're talking about today. And there are a few settings here that you might want to look at when you're getting yourself set up, but this is how I like to set up my case routing by filter. There's a screen pop timeout, so I'll show you what the screen pop looks like in a few seconds. And I always set it to 30 seconds, meaning when a new case pops up for your agent, they have 30 seconds to accept that new case. I like to turn on the passive screen pop. It's a little bit more passive, so it'll show a screen pop in the upper right-hand side of the screen instead of being really obnoxious and showing you like a screen pop in the very middle of your screen. I like to have it route one case at a time, so that just allows your agents to finish working on the case that they're currently working on before another case gets routed to them. So I have all these settings set up. I'm just going to click Update. So that's step one for turning on case routing by filter. Step two is to actually look at your filters and determine which filters we want to turn case routing on for. So remember, you don't need to turn case routing on for every filter you have. You just need to turn it on for the filters that you want your team to route themselves through. So in this case, I'm going to turn on case routing for just my bagel queue and my cupcake queue. So looking at the bagel queue, I'm going to go into my bagel editing filter. I'm going to go to the bottom, and I'm going to see that this setting now appears since I've enabled case routing by filter, allow routing. And I'm going to toggle that on, click Update. And then I'm going to do the same thing for my cupcake filter. And just one really important little detail to note when you're setting up your filters that are going to be routed, and this is something that often gets forgotten, but when we're setting up the sorting for a filter that's going to be routed, we always want to make sure that it's being sorted by ascending order. This is important because when the case routing engine is going through cases, it will always assign the next case that's at the very top. So we want to make sure that the oldest cases are at the very top. If we have it sort by descending, that'll kind of confuse it a little bit because it'll continue trying to assign you the same cases over and over again because the last updated case will always be at the top. So let's do last updated ascending. And then going into my unassigned, or going into my demo site, I'm going to click refresh. And now you can see that the two filters that I have set up with case routing have these play buttons next to them. So as an agent, when I sign in and I see that the two filters that that are available for routing have play buttons next to them, that lets me know that I'm able to route myself through those filters. In my example, I'm going to be a cupcake person, so in order to turn on case routing by filter, all I have to do is click that play button next to the filter that I want to route myself through. So I'm going to click the play button and see what happens. It tells me that the routing has started. I'm going to wait a little bit. And you'll see that the first case that is being submitted to me is this one case over here. So you have the option to either accept it or decline it. But notice that there's no additional information about the case. You only see the customer of the case. So, you can't really cherry pick this case because you have no idea what the subject or the email body is. You just have to either accept it or decline it. And if you decline the case, you turn the case routing by filter off, and then you just start all over. So now that I've accepted the case, I am able to work on the case, and I won't get assigned another case until I'm done with this case, and I go back to my dashboard.
That works out. So, so there's a couple of questions about this. When we do that sort of round-robin routing, and you've got some cases that are easier and some cases that are more complex, is there a way to refine that round-robin routing to take that into account?
Between cases that are more complex versus cases that are more simple, I think you would probably just want to separate those cases by filters, because round-robin case routing, this feature is not discriminating in any way. There's no way of telling it to assign one case to certain agents versus another. It's truly like a, fair, even-Steven kind of way of just routing cases by every agent.
And do we have any best practices for, because it looks like agents need to manually accept that round-robin routing.
Right.
Are there any best practices around enforcing that employees accept that?
Best practices way. I would say just through training. I would just emphasize training for agents.
Is there any way to sort of report on that so that you can see who's accepting or who isn't? Maybe you can do something that's a little bit more indirect by seeing which agents are handling more cases.
Right.
Or if they're doing it in less amount of time.
Right. Yeah, I would try looking at the agents report within Business Insights and just getting a little bit of insight into how many cases certain agents are accepting, what their average handle time is, just like getting a better picture of like why agents may be taking fewer cases based on their average handle time, that kind of thing. Definitely look at the agents report within Business Insights.
Yeah, so it feels like that's sort of a training opportunity, but there isn't a way to force necessarily agents to accept these round-robin cases.
Yeah, there's no way to like actually force it, but I would say that this automated case routing is the closest that we can get to doing that.
Got it.
Because at the end of the day, even when a case has been assigned to an agent, they can still unassign themselves if they feel like they're uncomfortable with a case. So the accepting or declining option that you saw in the case routing by filters really like the most blind way of assigning a case to a customer or to an agent.
So one of the things that I think that we see in those reporting metrics is you can see which agents are cherry picking and sort of declining those cases based on sort of their volume, I would think.
Right.
right? So if their volume is going down, you know that they're not accepting those cases,
right?
Because they are running out of cases that they're able to work on, while other agents are still continuing to work on more and more cases.
Right.
Do you think that that's more of an accurate thing? Because I know we don't have specific reporting built around case routing, so there's some inferences that you need to make in the reporting that you're looking at.
Right. Yes. And again, looking at things like average handle time and time to first response, just to see how long agents are really spending on each case that they're working on, and maybe even drilling into, like specific cases that those agents spend more time on. Will give you more insight into maybe why they have fewer cases total. Maybe they're handling just more complicated cases.
Yeah, I mean it's a management opportunity.
Yes,
I think. So there is an interesting question, and speaking as someone that knows how to code a little bit enough to be dangerous, I think that this is an interesting one. If everyone declines one of these cases, what happens to it? Does it just keep going around and around? Eventually, someone has to get it, right?
If everyone declines the cases, the queue will just build up. You'll just have this big backlog of cases.
Spike.
Yeah, you'll definitely see the spike. You'll notice in your case filter that you have like tons of cases building up and your agents just aren't assigning themselves.
Is that because you order it by the ascending piece in your routing?
The ascending piece is important just for the routing to be able to function and send the correct cases without sending you. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Possibly, I think if you have your filter sorted by descending, it'll feel more like a bug. It'll feel more like there's a problem, like maybe the system is broken because you keep getting the same case over and over again.
Got it. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for showing that. I know we have a few more questions coming in, but I know we also have a lot more material to cover. So I'll keep trying to answer questions as they come up in the chat. So please keep them coming. So we just saw a little bit about building case assignment, but I think we want to also talk about this case management piece. And the thing about case management that I know is super challenging is that it's unique to every company, right? It depends on the process that you're looking to build and what your expectations are around how to do that case management really, really well. So some of the common things that come up are knowing the difference. So there's a few different features that come up when we start talking about case management that are really easy to confuse. And I thought it would be helpful to go through a little bit about what's really the difference. So one of those is labels versus custom fields. So tell us a little bit about labels.
Sure. So yes, this is a very common source of confusion. Labels are more used as visual indicators. So labels are great for like immediate indication of specific information that your agent needs to know as soon as they look at their dashboard. Labels are flashy. They have bright colors. You can make your urgent labels brighter colors like red, orange, and yellow. Labels are just a little bit more immediate, but they also give a little less information because they're just a label. I'd say a best practice is definitely to limit your label creation. A lot of times, I see customers getting carried away with their labels and storing all this information on a case with their labels. But when you have too many labels attributed to one case, you sort of lose that visual indicator advantage that a label provides because the labels just go a little bit too far out in the subject line and you don't see every label that's on a case when you're looking at your dashboard. So try to keep your labels as concise as possible. If you have a lot of labels on your site at the moment, a really great exercise is just go through cleanup and see which labels you can consolidate.
And then one of the ways that you might be able to do that is to turn some of them into custom fields.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about custom fields.
So custom fields are great for more comprehensive information storage. Custom fields offer a little bit more structure in recording information. So if you think about it, labels only have one layer of information, right? But a custom field offers two layers. You have the custom field itself, what is the category of this case, for example. And then you have a second layer of information, which is the actual value of the custom field. So the category is XYZ, or the product that this case related to is XYZ. They encourage a more consistent support process, because when you have custom fields on a case, those custom fields are there for every case, and you're able to enforce like a more uniform documentation of information. You know, it's a little less arbitrary as assigning any label within your long list of labels that you have available for every case. And you can set up automated actions on cases based on specific custom field values. You can do this with labels as well, but I like doing it with custom fields because custom fields just offer more structured information.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we see in a lot of customers is the labels are really easy to understand, because I think it reminds us a lot of things that we do in our email as just, people, but the custom fields are actually super, super powerful because there's so much more structure and flexibility to them.
Right.
So the next one that it strikes us that we might want to talk about a little bit to know the difference are the difference between macros versus knowledge-based articles. And this is really when you have that FAQ document of you want to bring consistency to the answers that you're giving. How do you know if you want to use a macro or build a knowledge-based article? So let's start with macros, because whenever we talk to customers, their favorite of all of the desk tools is a macro. So let's talk about what that is.
Macros are super powerful. They allow us to perform multiple actions with one click. So when you're looking at whether or not you want to create a macro versus a knowledge-based article for a specific workflow that you have or a specific type of information that you're commonly sending back to your customer, macros are great if you have to perform multiple actions. For example, if you need to adjust the case status, if you want to append a specific label, you can set custom fields with macros. You can assign to specific groups or agents. Macros can do all of these different things and also create a response to the customer. So macros, embody all these different things, plus they can, include responses to the customers and also include information from knowledge-based articles.
Well, and I think that this is really key and critical to thinking about the difference, because when you think about macros as a productivity tool that let you do lots of things, they include this piece that is content, but the content is actually something that's completely different.
Right.
So when we think about that content, it's really more of a library of content. And as you think about what you want in that library, you want things that are ready for easy distribution to customers. So you have a lot more formatting capabilities when it comes to building a knowledge-based article. You also can think about it as useful for sharing knowledge internally among your agents. So as they are trying to get up to speed, one of the things that's useful is you can pop up the knowledge base from any case, and the agent can search through it so they can learn more and then provide consistently correct answers.
Right.
The other piece that's really cool about knowledge bases, which as a marketer I think is tremendous, is you can take all of that content that you've been using internally so that your agents can be productive, and you can start sharing it externally on a self-service support site. So with that, you have an opportunity to extend your brand as being really helpful, but also deflecting lots of cases away from your team just by exposing the answers to those frequently asked questions.
Right, absolutely.
And then the last one is urgent cases versus non-urgent cases. We've talked a little bit about the routing and assignment, but one of the less utilized features that we see in Desk is the notion of priority. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Priority is a way of indicating, the urgency of a case, basically like what Becca was saying. We have a scale of priority 1 through 10 that's available in Desk. And you are able to sort your cases by priority. You're able to create filters around priority. You're able to create rules around priority. You can adjust priority with macros. There's a lot that you can do with priorities in Desk. And when we're looking at urgent cases, priority is a really great way of indicating that a case is urgent and needs to be addressed. So priority is a big one. We can also use visual indicators like a bright red label that says something like escalated or urgent case. You can have all of your urgent cases assigned to your top escalation group or top tier group, either through a case updated rule or through a macro. You can have a designated filter for urgent cases that pulls all those cases with those labels in them, or pulls all the cases that are priority 8 through 10 into them. And you can even send a notification to a specific group or a specific agent when a case has been designated as being urgent.
Wonderful. What about non-urgent cases?
So non-urgent cases are sort of just everything else. They have lower priorities. Maybe they have fewer labels that don't have that bright, like red escalated label. The group assignment varies. The process is just a little bit more standard for non-urgent cases.
That works. So I know we're going to jump into the demo so we can see some of these things. Why don't we go do that, and so we can see some of the differences. Great. So we're starting with we're back in the support inbox, and you can see over on the right-hand side that priority thing, right? Is that something that you can sort by?
Yes, absolutely. So when you're looking at your agent dashboard, you can sort anything by or you can sort your view by any of the columns that we see. And so priority is a great one to use because you can immediately sort all of your cases to see which cases need to be handled first. And you can see in my test site that I have a few cases that have been escalated with priority 10.
So we've gotten a couple of questions about how do we want to change this sorting. So one of the things I want to point out is that this is actually a you can actually adjust this quite a lot. So you can actually move things around on this view of what's happening, including identifying not just updated, but when a case came in. And so maybe we can just move this a little bit so we don't get that other thing to pop up. So you can actually see when cases are created pretty easily and just add that to the way that you want to be looking at this. And this is actually adjustable by agents. So the agent can choose the way that they want to see this. So that's a good place to start. But let's pop open a case so we can see some of the differences between like labels and custom fields and things like that.
Sure. So let's take a look at one of these cases. Looking at this test case here, I have a few labels and I don't have any labels on this case specifically, but I have a few custom fields. And these custom fields just give me the ability to further designate information about this case in particular. Is this case related to cupcakes or bagels? What flavor is the customer asking for? And if I were to fill out these different custom fields, I'd be able to do additional reporting on them too. So I'd be able to report on, how many cases were asked regarding the everything bagel, for example. Labels work a little bit differently. Labels you can type in. You can just do like a free typing thing and create like new labels. So if I wanted to create a new label, I could just do that. You can also click on the field and look at the entire drop-down of labels that you have available. So you can select labels that are available at the moment. And when you click update, everything gets saved. So you can see both labels and custom fields from the case view, but what I want to point out is that you can't see custom fields from the dashboard view. When you're first initially looking at all the different cases within a filter, you just see that visual indicator label. And looking at the display that Becca was customizing before, custom fields are not available within the columns that you can add to your dashboard view. So custom fields are really just like further, deeper, more structured information that you look at when you're drilling into a case.
So we've got some questions about custom fields. First of all, are there limits on custom fields? Like, are you going to run into a certain number of custom fields that is going to be overwhelming?
I believe that depends on your plan. I think there is a limit to the number of custom fields, but I rarely see customers running into that problem.
Got it.
Most of you are planning on having like hundreds of custom fields, which I do not recommend.
And are there ways for you to mandate that agents fill in custom fields before they move on?
Yes. So there are ways of creating required custom fields, but that's a little bit more of a workaround, and I'm not going to go over it today. But there are ways of creating case updated rules that will basically force your agents to fill in a custom field before they're able to move a case to resolve.
Got it. Cool. And as a reminder, we have support.desk.com has a huge number of articles that you can search through to find answers to some of these. And if none of that is helpful, you can always email support@desk.com to get directly in touch with our WOW team so that they can help you. So if there's anything that we're not addressing on the webinars that you'd like to get more detail about, that is a great way to get access to that. Let's talk a little bit, let's just pop open a case and see the knowledge base and how it's different from a macro.
Okay. So when we're opening up a case, we can directly access the agent internal facing knowledge base. And let me do that again. By going into the agent reply area and clicking on this little book icon on the bottom left-hand corner. So when I click on this little book icon, I can open up the knowledge base, and these are all the different articles that are available within your content center. You can read the articles, you can copy the text of the article to your clipboard so that you can copy paste it into your response, or you can directly insert the text into your case. So this is a pretty powerful tool. And these knowledge base articles popping into your admin center are just all the articles that you've created within your content center in the admin. And your internal knowledge base that your agents access will also include any articles that you have set to private. So articles that are set to private will only be available to your agents. Articles that are not set to private, so articles that are public, will also be available in your public-facing knowledge base. And that's like the self-service portal that Becca was talking about earlier.
Yeah. So let's see. Let's make sure that we can get through some of the rest of the content, unless there's anything in particular anybody wants to see here. But I think we're okay. Do you want to just use a macro real quick and sort of show how that works?
Sure. So if I have a macro, let me just use one of these sample macros, more info and pending. So I clicked on the more info and pending macro, and you can see that it appended this more info label. It changed the status to pending. It actually increased my priority to 5. And it also inserted this quick reply / canned response. And notice that nothing has been saved on this case yet. I have to still click send and update before all those changes are saved. So when you select a macro, that's one click, and that performs all these different actions. But if there's ever anything that you need to customize after selecting the macro, like for example, if I didn't like this quick response and I wanted to type in something different, I could still do that, and then I could click on update.
So we have a few questions coming about the differences between Classic and Next Gen when it comes to custom fields. Mm-hmm. Is there anything to be aware of in terms of what's possible with custom fields in Next Gen versus Classic, or vice versa?
So I would say that Classic and Next Gen custom fields are exactly the same. The only thing to be aware of is that only Next-Gen Agent supports dependent dropdowns. So dependent dropdowns are a pretty new feature that we have. We released them in the past few months, and they allow you to create dependencies between two different drop-down list custom fields. So for example, if I wanted bagel or cupcake flavor custom field to appear based on whatever value that I select for this first custom field over here, I could set up a dependency that says bagel or cupcake flavor custom field is dependent on, is this case related to bagels or cupcakes? Got it. So that's an example of a dependent dropdown, and you cannot set up dependent dropdowns if you're using classic agent.
I mean, it's one of the reasons that we're seeing a lot of people using Next-Gen Agent is the additional capabilities that they're getting with custom fields.
Right.
Because they're so powerful. So why don't we, we've talked a little bit about case management. Let's go back to thinking more about automation. So when we think about that, the ways that we start to consider what it is that comes from automation is you need to really automate as much as you can. This is where you're going to get the real boost in productivity that's going to make your team even more effective. And there's a few different rule types that help you with that. And I know that we've talked a little bit about these inbound interaction rules as well, but there's a few others that I think we should highlight.
Right. So there are quite a few different rule types that are available within Desk. If you've ever looked at your rules admin area, you will have seen there's like inbound interaction, outbound interaction, case open, case pending, all these different rule types. But what we're going to talk about right now are the 3 rule types that customers will use the most often. And time rules are a really powerful rule type because time rules will allow you to create different SLAs and actions that are triggered based on time. So a really good example of a time rule that you might create is maybe an aging case time rule where a case has been sitting unassigned for over 48 hours. If you wanted to create something like that, you would create a time rule that said case has been, in status new for 48 hours and case is unassigned. If those 2 conditions are met, let's send a notification to the supervisor, or let's append a label that says, aging case. Let's put this aging case in a filter so that we can see all the different cases that have been aging for 48 hours. You can do all these different things based on time by using a time rule. That works?
Then the next rule that I think about is those case updated rules. And I think one really easy way to think about this is like setting up dominoes so that they'll keep going. What do you think?
Yeah. Case updated rules can definitely have that type of effect, especially if you have multiple case updated rules that trigger some sort of workflow of case updated rules. So case updated rules are definitely one of the most commonly used rule types because they are literally triggered every single time you click update on a case. Every time you click update after you've changed priority or changed an agent assignment or added a label or sent a reply, anytime you click that button, our rules engine will go and look through every case updated rule that you have set up to see if any conditions are met. So you can use case updated rules to do so many different things like send notifications, append labels, set custom fields, escalations, any of those things. That works.
And then lastly, of course, we have all of these inbound interaction rules. And I know I'm a bit of a Harry Potter freak, but the way I think about that is really the sorting hat, right? If you can get that sorting hat working for you, then things are going to be a little bit more effective, right? Now, one of the places where I know we run into some challenges with this, and I think it's a great example, is what is the difference between an auto acknowledgement versus a notification, and how would you set those up with these kinds of rule types?
Right. So the biggest difference between auto acknowledgments and notifications is that auto acknowledgments are external facing for your customers only, and notifications are meant to be completely internal. So notifications are only meant to be sent to your agents. The difference in rule types between auto acknowledgments and notifications are that inbound interaction rules are used for auto acknowledgments. So it's kind of like going back to the whole sorting hat thing. When you're managing case assignment and when you're first managing a case that has come into your desk site for the first time, you want to use an inbound interaction rule that will catch those inbound cases coming in for the first time. And when our rules engine checks those inbound interaction rules, you want to have them check an auto acknowledgement rule that will trigger a response that goes to your customer, letting them know that your site or their case has been successfully submitted into your desk site and that your team is working on getting back to them. Notifications, on the other hand, can be triggered either with inbound interaction rules or case updated rules, or a lot of the other different rule types that you see within the desk admin. Notifications are a little bit more flexible in that way, but again, remember, notifications are meant to be internal only. So you could have an inbound interaction rule with a notification that notifies your internal team that a new case has been submitted. Or you can have a case updated rule that notifies your internal team that, you know, a case has been escalated to priority 10 or a new case has been assigned to them.
Awesome. So, we've gotten some questions, and I think actually we're heading into the question section, which will be very short because I want to be sensitive to everyone's time. But is there any kind of chart that we can point people to that shows what different rule types are, so that they can really get a better understanding of what each of these things are?
Yes, I believe there is a desk support article that has documentation on all the different rule types, and will, you know, that it like actually explains how each one is different.
Got it. Okay, and then we also have some questions back to custom fields and dependent dropdowns. Mm-hmm. Can you automate the information that's in those custom fields? So based on whatever is in the text of any sort of case. So let's say that you have an inbound interaction rule mm-hmm. that identifies, you know, first it's a case about bagels, mm-hmm. and then it's a case specifically about cheesy bagels versus, I don't know, everything bagels or something, right? How is there a way to make that automatic, or is that more something that needs to be selected by a customer, or what's the best way to do that?
I think you can automate that, but there is a lot of room for error if you're trying to automate dependent dropdowns. And if you're trying to automate dependent dropdowns, you might be better off not using dependent dropdowns. You might be better off just making them normal custom fields that aren't dependent upon each other. Because, you know, for example, if you created an inbound interaction rule that searched the subject of or the body of an email for a specific keyword, that sets the first custom field, and then searches for another keyword that would like set the second custom field, you know, you can easily see how that might mess up and create some problems. I think if there was an error there, the rule probably just wouldn't run properly and the dependent drop-down fields wouldn't get set. So if you were trying to automate that kind of field setting, I would recommend just not using a dependent drop-down.
Got it. Well, and we are at 10:59. So I would like to thank everybody for their time. I'm going to stay online for a bit to try to answer everyone's questions. But for now, thank you so much for joining the webinar. Thank you so much, Amanda, for all of your expertise and for helping everybody understand. As a reminder, we will be sending a recording of this webinar to everyone. So if we went a little bit fast or if there's anything you want to return to, please do. Thank you so much.